What is going on, guys? So some of you may have heard of the dog breed, and I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, Shiba Inu. It's a Japanese breed. And for those of you who are familiar with the meme, very deception, such paternity fraud. Wow. Times when dads-to-be found out they weren't the father. Now this sounds like an episode of Jeremy Kyle, and I guess it kind of is in a way, but it's in a bit of a different format. So this is a number of really short snippets of situations in which men have found out they are not the father. Now, I've been thinking about this for probably about the last 24 hours. Our biology is in a constant fight against social rules, right? There's a reason why roughly 30% of all babies in the West are not actually fathered by the father. You know what I mean? So I just want you guys to make sure that you do your paternity tests. Take your due diligence when it is that whenever you know someone's having a baby, or if you've had a baby yourself, or if you've ever had doubts, or if there's just some lingering uncertainty about just something in your mind, do a paternity test. And for those of you who haven't seen my other videos on paternity tests, search Sydney MGTOW DNA on YouTube. But let's get right into this. There's really nothing like seeing your newborn baby for the first time. It's a pretty amazing experience. But there's also nothing like seeing your newborn baby for the first time when that baby is clearly not yours. It's awkward. Take it from these 29 people who've been there and are sharing every cringeworthy detail. You may or may not be visiting 23andme.com immediately after reading this. So yeah, just FYI. And I'm guessing 23andme is a paternity testing site. Anyway, first story. Worked in the Army hospital on Fort Lewis. A woman came in for belly pain, and we found out and told her she was 10 weeks pregnant. The husband at the bedside started laughing, grabbed his coat and left the room, explaining to us that he had been in Afghanistan until 3 weeks prior. He looked back at her and said, "Well, that's that, Brittany." I always liked how classily he left her while she just silently stared off into space. Next story. I had a vasectomy. While chatting with the doctor, he told me about another patient. This guy had 3 kids and came in for the snip because he and his wife decided they were done having children. The doc opened up his sack and found nothing to snip. This guy was born without the ability to have any children. The poor doctor had to explain to him what happened. Imagine finding out that way. Next story. I used to work in the newborn nursery at a hospital. We got the babies right from delivery, cleaned them up, footprinted them, checked vitals, etc. Dads usually came in with the newborns. This dad comes in with this baby. Dad is white, mum is white, baby is very obviously not white. The dad was very quiet standing next to his baby, watching us clean it up. He says quietly, "I don't think this is my baby." You could tell he was absolutely devastated. We advised him not to sign the birth certificate until he was sure. Not sure what happened after we sent the baby back out to mum, but I felt awful for that guy. Next story. One of my favorite cousins just did 23andMe with her dad and discovered that they were not biologically related at all. This is especially horrible because my aunt, her mother, is one of the most ridiculously zealous and judgmental people I have ever met. She screams at the baby cousins when they don't behave perfectly. She literally threw a pocket Bible at a woman in a grocery store after the woman was on the phone and said, "shit," or something like that. And she likes to send me unsolicited long letters about God's plan for my life. Surprisingly, her husband is the most fun and laid-back person I've ever met. He did not deserve this or her. Next story. A friend and his girlfriend were on again, off again, and she got pregnant. She swears it's his. He wants a paternity test. He moves in with her and her mum. She has the baby, takes the test. The test is taking a while to come back. He and his family are over the moon with the baby, kind of forgot about it. Mentions it to girlfriend's mum one day and she says, oh yeah, she didn't tell you? Came back a while ago. Totally your baby. Whenever a woman says, totally yours, that's like, oh yeah, totally yours. Totally your baby. Awesome, all is well. A few months later, they're moving out and he finds the test in a box. Not his baby. ETA, he left, tried to stay in the baby's life, but she wouldn't let him. And thank you to the Price is Right review for that $2 donation. Says Sydney Supro, never stop being awesome. Cheers. Appreciate you, man. This guy could never have found out the truth had she thrown the results away. And this next guy also could have never learned the truth had a nurse not kept it real. Next story. My grandmother was a nurse. Once she was assisting with delivering a baby, and the ostensible father commented that the child looks good for a premature baby. Without thinking, my grandmother told the truth. That baby is not premature. So I guess I know where I got my social obliviousness from. Now, in case none of you clicked to what just happened there, she's started a new relationship with this dude, basically got knocked up immediately, had the baby prematurely, aka full term to the guy she was fucking before that dude, and she just got caught out. Next story. I used to work with a guy whose wife was pregnant. Near time for delivery, everyone at our place of business had a big party with gifts, money, etc. So big day comes, water breaks, they get in the car to go to the hospital. She breaks. This is cold. And have you ever been to Antarctica? Colder than that. She breaks the news on the way there. It's not his. The kid is another race. And if he could just drop her off at the hospital and then leave, that would be great. What? Guys, make sure you smash that thumbs up to get this video trending. Guys need to hear about this shit. And look for the red flags. He took a few days off work, found a new apartment, moved out, filed divorce, etc. He called into work and told someone what happened. News spread pretty fast. All congratulations cards were cleaned up and thrown away. Everyone was very sensitive to his pain, except somehow, I don't know how I did not get the news. So on his first day back, I walked into the office he shared with 6 to 7 other guys and said, hey, daddy-o, how's fatherhood so far? Getting any sleep? Got some pictures? Let's see the little tyke. He slowly lifted his head to look at me with a painful look. The room was dead silent. One of his workmates stood up, grabbed my arm, and walked me out of the room, shushing me. What happened? I asked. Did it die? What's the problem? When he told me, I about died myself. I still feel bad for the dude. And it's been 30 years. Next story. Had a lesbian couple come in. One of them was pregnant, neither knew. Judging from all the screaming, this information was poorly received. Well, imagine that. 2 women screaming at each other and committing domestic violence. Wouldn't have seen that one coming. Next story. My best friend was dating a girl and knocked her up. They got engaged and planned to get married right after the baby was born. There were about 10 of us in the waiting room waiting for her to crank out the baby. It was her parents, because his were in another state, some of her friends, and some of ours. After sitting there for about 2 hours, he walks out with a smirk on his face and says, "Let's go." We all thought something horrible had happened. Her friends ask how the baby is, and he said, "Fine, but black." In the parking garage, he tells us to follow him to his apartment, then sends me a text asking if I could put him up for a while. We literally moved him out of his apartment and into my spare bedroom in like an hour. Her parents didn't know who to be mad at. The confusion on their faces when he told them the baby was black was priceless. Next story. Nurse here. Once had a couple come in, just them. The father was black and the mother was white. The father was so involved, so ecstatic about him becoming a father for the second time with this woman. Nothing really seemed off until she started pushing. The baby girl came out completely white. Like completely white. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Usually black babies come out a little pale, but this was just straight out white. See this face? This color. Maybe even whiter. We had to escort the father out for fear of him becoming violent. Of course. Of course. But he just sat outside the room on the ground with his face in his hands. You know, like somebody who's not a domestic abuser just because he has a penis. That was one of the saddest moments I think I've ever seen with a father, besides stillbirth. Odd thing though, after though, the mum didn't want the baby and wanted nothing to do with the father. Probably out of guilt. So she left the responsibility of this baby, that wasn't this black guy's baby, by the way, and their other 2-year-old boy to this man who didn't even question taking on this child. You know, look, some people may call him a simp, but I got to give props to a dude that that takes that on. At least he knows that he's not going to have to deal with the headaches of the ex-partner because she's just straight bailed on her own kids. So yeah, while this man's decision is certainly admirable, the debunked dad in this one is having none of it. And I just want to pause this list for a moment. I got the Price is Right review, gave $5 donation. Thank you, brother. Says, I have 2 stories if you hadn't seen them. Man falsely accused of rape for fixing a car for a woman. Cop reprimanded for holding a door open for a woman. Heard of the first one, not the second one. I'm definitely going to be covering that first one very soon. Thank you. Next story. Had a college buddy whose fiance was pregnant. They were the perfect couple. Both had just over a year with great careers starting out. Everything was butterflies and fucking rainbows. Guess which word I added in. Fast forward to the delivery room. They're in there and out comes a very black baby. He's quite the pale redhead and she's a blonde / blue-eyed Texan girl. He made sure everyone was okay, waited for her parents to arrive, and left without saying a word. He moved all his stuff out of the house while she was in the hospital and cut off all communications with her. Just walked out of their lives in the most stone-cold act I've ever seen. What a savage motherfucker. They were together for 9 years and he just left cold turkey. She tried to contact him at his job a few times, but he quickly moved up the ladder and eventually got a job in another city. Sounds like something that happens when you go MGTOW, you know. Ditch the person who had a baby to someone else, move somewhere else, get a new job, and then just go on a rocket ship to the top. Just saying. He told me once that he took solace in the fact that her family had already dropped about 10K in a wedding that never happened. That's what I'm talking about. Next story. My brother was doing his OBGYN rotation. His story is that in the first birth, he assisted the woman, had her husband leave the room. Oh, this is going to be real good. This is going to be good. Seems odd these days, but he had the husband step out for the comfort of the patient. The baby is delivered and the color was not even close. Lily white parents and very black baby. Tyrone's been working overtime in these stories. Tearing that pussy out. She wants him to stay to talk about her husband, who is about to come back, and he bails on the whole situation. She was playing the odds all the way to the end. And thank you to Peter Kreutzen, I think is how you pronounce it, for that €2 donation. I appreciate you, man. Next story. These are good stories, right? Well, not for the guys involved, which is why you don't want to be in that situation, guys. Just be careful. My uncle and his first wife were supposedly having a baby. Keep in mind, both of them are white. We know where this is going, right? Delivery day arrived, and lo and behold, the baby was definitely not white. My family, of course, knew that she must have cheated on him, but my uncle was so happy and couldn't imagine being cheated on that they just sort of pretended the baby was his. I thought it was dumb to pretend the baby was his, but I was glad that at least the child was getting a semi-normal upbringing. That's until 2 years later when the wife divorced him and called us all up for being so stupid not to realize the baby belonged to another dude. She ran back to her other man, and we haven't heard from them since. Next story! I gotta give my friend credit for doing something I don't think I could ever do. Found out after being married and having a 3 and a 1-year-old that his wife had been cheating on him. And by the way, guys, I'm not professing to be perfect either, right? Nobody's perfect. We've all got our flaws. So, people cheat. People break the rules of society from time to time. This is purely about paternity fraud. Don't get me wrong, all right? I got to give my friend credit for doing something I don't think I could ever do. Found out after being married and having a 3 and a 1-year-old, blah, blah, blah. So wife had been cheating on him multiple times with multiple men. Everyone is white though, so no obvious signs. Anyways, when he finds out there's a chance neither of the kids are his, he buys 2 paternity tests. He brought them home, but then the horrible conclusion hit him. He was prepared if they were his. He was prepared if they weren't. He had no fucking idea what he would do if one was and one wasn't. So he threw the tests away. Man, this guy's got enormous testicles. They divorced. She keeps seeing people for short times, and he is now remarried to a fantastic person. Hopefully he doesn't get dicked a second time. Next story! My sister, not mine obviously, but I'm just reading in the first person from this guy who wrote this. My sister got pregnant in high school and later met her now husband when she was 5 months pregnant. She is white and the boyfriend is black. The baby daddy was white and not present. I was with our entire family, including my now brother-in-law visiting the baby. My sister was still in recovery from her C-section. Brother-in-law picks up my niece. The nurse looks at him and says, "She should darken up in a few days." We all had a laugh. We knew he wasn't the father, but she didn't. I always wondered if she felt bad or assumed adultery. They have 2 more girls together and he was able to adopt 3 years later. So this nurse in this situation tried to ease any possible tension, but this next lab technician was not quite so smooth. In the next story, my mother used to work in a medical lab many decades ago. One day, another woman who worked in the building was visiting the lab, and during the conversation mentioned that she was blood type X. Her husband was type Y, and their child was type Z. I don't remember the specific types. These are just basically the fill-in letters. One of the younger lab techs blurted out, "That's impossible," and the doctor in the lab just stared daggers at him. Because you know what that means. My mum still remembers it as one of the most awkward moments she'd ever been privy to. And you know what's coming up now? The next story. My brother told me this story about a man he used to work with. Brother's work friend is from an Eastern European country and came to the USA many, many moons ago and started his family here. One of his sons meets a nice girl. They plan to get married, but life happens and then more life ends up coming out of them. The whole big family is excited about the new baby. Father-to-be is absolutely ecstatic. They have a small ceremony before the baby's born, yada yada. Delivery time comes and out pops this little boy who is about 50 shades darker. And I'm not talking about the erotic novel here. I'm talking about this kid is really black compared to the parents. And the new dad absolutely loses his shit. Now, you guys think you know where this is going, but you don't. So just stick with me on this one. In his heartbroken rage, he accuses his new bride of cheating on him, disowns said child, and rages right out of the delivery room, leaving the new mum all alone with her mountain of shame. This guy returns to his family and continues his hate-filled rampage and exclaims to his family that his whore of a wife had cheated on him because the baby looked nothing like him in skin tone. The family is shocked. Never would have believed this sweet young thing would do that to their son. Absolute shame and misery all around. Well, sitting in a dark little corner of the room, little tiny grandma chirps up and has a story to tell. Oh, you better believe this story just took a turn. Apparently, back in her glory days, during some war or another, she had a great summer with a French soldier. A black French soldier. She got knocked up and he got sent home. And back then, you kept the baby and hoped your family didn't murder you before you could abandon it somewhere. She ended up meeting her husband shortly after getting knocked up, and things just progressed as if it was his child. And wouldn't you know, the little thing popped out white as snow, and she breathed a sigh of relief because this was going to be the easiest lie to keep ever. So this poor bastard's been carrying around this super melanin gene his whole life and knocked up his wife, and it decided to all come out on this sweet little boy who he now has to go crawling back and reclaim. That's if he still is the father. He should still get a DNA test. Thankfully, the whole family went with him to the hospital. Old grandma had a picture of her old fella as proof, and husband and wife were reunited. Whew, that's brutal. And the Price is Right review. Another $5 donation. Thank you, brother. Says, last story for you that really struck my nerve. False allegation leads to an old man's death after being attacked by the brother of a 19-year-old. Cunts. Savage. That is not cool. Not cool. And Riff Magos says, do not underestimate the power of the ginger. Thank you for your $5 donation, brother. I appreciate you. Riff, why do I not have you as a moderator? That is a travesty. I need to sort that out. Anyway, I'm going to get back to this. Next story. And I've got a request to show the shirt. The dog shirt. Shiba Inu. Again, hopefully I got that right. I know a girl who was pregnant with her boyfriend's best friend's baby. He found out there was a possibility about a week before she gave birth. So she'd been getting cream pied the baby daddy's best friend for like at least 9 months before this. And he's only just finding out about it. So he found out there was a possibility about a week before she gave birth. I went up to see her once she was born and he looked just like the friend. There was no question. I broke the news to her boyfriend and he was absolutely devastated. His parents were heartbroken and super pissed. They had bought the girl everything she needed, including a $500 car seat and stroller set. She refused to give anything back. Why does that not surprise me at all in any way, shape, or form? She started up a relationship with the friend immediately after having their child, and they're still together a decade later. But the kicker for me has always been that the boyfriend and best friend were the next door neighbors. She moved into his house after coming home from the hospital. So just, you know, grabbed all her shit and trundled from here to next door. So her ex-boyfriend and his family had to see them basically every day raising this child that they had believed to be his for the entire pregnancy. I can't even imagine. Yes, they did a DNA test right after he was born. The baby was the friend's. And Riff Brother, thank you for that $5 super chat. Another one says, another super chat for the sheer joy in Sydney's face in exposing BS. I'm loving this, Riff. All right, next story, guys. My ex-girlfriend delivered a baby while I was in the delivery room, and turns out it wasn't mine. She was 16, I was 15. All along, I was under the impression that this kid was mine, and time to be an adult, you know, stand up and be a man, do the right thing, you know, all of the stuff, just sacrifice because penis. Took all of the classes, read all the books, worked every night, weekend to save whatever money I could as a 15-year-old. I finally get the call, she's in labor. Finally got the call, she's in labor. So I have somebody rush me to the ER. Luckily for her, very fortunately, luckily for her, it wasn't a long labor, only about 6 hours, but there was a complication. The baby came out with an umbilical cord wrapped around its neck. The doctor assured us it was going to be okay, but the nurses were prepping for things to go south. Baby comes out, it's a light shade of purple, and nurses immediately take the baby and put on the smallest mask you've ever seen to help it get oxygen, I guess. I was too panicked to ask a lot of questions. They state they need to keep the baby on watch overnight, so I stay in the room with the ex. The next evening, the baby is back in the room with us and all seems well. The ex is asleep and the same nurse from the night before comes into the room and beckons me out. She states that at risk of losing her job, she has to break the news. The harsh news to me, that kid is not mine. She stated that while at this stage it wasn't obvious, over the next few weeks it would become clear that this kid was mixed. And since both of us were white, it was a high probability that it wasn't mine. Cue a mixed bag of emotions and me promptly waking the ex to get a little clarification. Come to find out, she knew the chances and was just hoping it was mine because it worked better for her. How convenient. How convenient for her. Apparently her father was an old school racist and she didn't want to have to deal with that, aka take accountability for any of her actions. I left the hospital to collect my thoughts and a few weeks later was served with child support papers. One DNA test and about 6 weeks later, I am 0.0% that kid's father. Wherever that nurse is now, I hope your life is amazing. I understand that you were not supposed to get involved in the personal side of things and keep it professional, but you saved me a lot of additional headaches. Next story! They still keep coming. Happened to me at the hospital once. I was an intern. What you have to do after finishing your medical degree and check the mother, father, and baby's blood type, amongst other things, handing the results to the nurse and tell her to get them done again, pointing out the lab should pay some more attention this time. Nurse and patient are confused, so I explain to them how blood groups work and how the result has to be wrong. The patient asks me if I'm under the medical oath, meaning I can't tell her husband or any others, using specific names. I answered that I'm not allowed to talk about her medical record with anyone. She just nods and says the blood test is most likely correct, but I'm not allowed to tell the father, or actually her husband, since science says he isn't the biological father. Kind of scared me a bit how easy she said that. Made me wonder how many people's fathers are out there not knowing about their children. Oh, you know, about 30% of the Western population, roughly, give or take. Next story. And I've got to ask you, is this guy willing to play daddy or husband? Not so much. Not so much at all. X was pregnant with our first child. So happy. In the delivery room and the baby comes. Bright red she was. I'm black. She's white. I mean, like me. Sydney is not obviously black, but you know what I'm saying. 13 years later, I'm still involved and she still only knows me as daddy. Haven't spoken to the mother since September 2005. I don't feel like going to jail, so that relationship is fine the way it is. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that paternity fraud rate's more around 40% mark. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, in this next story, we can see why the dad might have bailed early, but the mum actually needed to stick around. Why, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. A friend of mine was looking after a Caucasian couple in the labor ward. Things were progressing, and things were progressing well, and she started pushing. Hair visible, obviously not here, but in this story, hair visible. Head continues to advance, and it is quite clear the child is black. Man, Tyrone's been working overtime. I'm looking at you, Satanic MGTOW. No, I'm not. I know you wouldn't be that crazy to knock all of these broads up. The dad stands up wide-eyed, points at the woman. Oh, this is the good bit. Shouts, "You fucking slag!" and storms out of the room. The woman in sheer panic hopped straight off the bed trying to chase down her significant other with the baby's head just sitting there between her legs. My friend is trying to wrangle the woman back on the bed so she can deliver the body. Woman's uncontrollably sobbing. No doubt he's got a Me Too coming at him for manhandling her and being physically violent towards her. Wouldn't surprise me. I imagine the guy didn't stick around to raise the little one based on his reaction. And you know what time it is now? It's time for the next story. I experienced something like this in my early 20s. We had a house picked out. Family and friends were sending us gifts and cards. I was along for all of the doctor's visits and ultrasounds and checkups and everything. And if you could turn your headlights off, that'd be fucking amazing. Fuck's sake, some people are so inconsiderate. Along for all the doctor's visits, ultrasounds, checkups, everything. This was my kid. We were in love. I had no question. Then one day I saw a very suspicious message pop up on her phone. And against all of my normal behavior, I looked at it. It was from a guy she'd cheated on me with. After a paternity test they both paid for, we learned the truth and it wasn't my kid. I immediately cut all ties and haven't maintained any contact. My life is so much more fruitful and wonderful, and I've cherished my independence in ways I simply couldn't before. It was a major happy ending. Not this type, obviously. But boy, am I glad I looked at that phone. Sounds like this guy went MGTOW and had a really good outcome from it. Just saying. Just saying. Yeah. And you're right, Riff. That would look pretty good on a t-shirt. You fucking slag. Although some people might get pretty offended. But you know what's not offensive? Well, at least to all of us anyway. The next story. I was in the waiting room once at a small hospital in Vermont. One father came out talking on the phone, demanding to talk to a manager. I only heard one side of the conversation, but apparently they had gone to a sperm clinic and they had been given a, his words, brown man's baby. And the next story coming up is actually a story of a good dad, because dads are actually pretty good dudes. Oh boy, I'm the illegitimate baby in this one. So apparently my mum and dad were on a break. Yeah, we know what that means. It means she's fucking someone else. Mum and dad were on a break, so she had a one-night stand with a dude she just met at a party. Textbook. Did I not just call that? I did not read that next sentence. I just called it straight off the bat, and there it was. Next sentence. Surprise, surprise, everybody. No shock. So she had a one-night stand with a dude she just met at a party. Later, she tells my dad that she's pregnant with his kid so they can get back together so he can support her. Alpha fox, beta box. I was born pretty dark because my biological dad was very Native American. Like, very, very Native American. The nurses made comments about me being a dark baby, but I guess dad attributed it to the bit of Native in my mum, or the bit of Native that was in your mum. You know what I'm saying? Even though she's very pale-skinned. Anyway, this being Oklahoma, of course, my dad marries her to do the right thing. I was adopted by him after the wedding at about 10 months old. A month later, my brother was born. Definitely my dad's kid. And not long after that, they had a fight. And she drops the revelation. That's not a revelation. That's a bomb. That's a nuclear bomb that just got dropped on him. The revelation on him that I wasn't his. That's fucking brutal, man. That is so cruel. No idea why it wasn't more obvious or if he was just in denial. Both my brothers are red-headed, light-eyed, and pale-skinned with freckles. And I think by brothers, he meant stepbrothers. Or, no, not stepbrothers, half-brothers. It's only stepbrothers if you marry in. So yeah, they're right. Red-headed, light-eyed, and pale-skinned with freckles. I popped out of the womb with dark hair, dark skin, dark eyes, no freckles. Even the nurses were like, what a cute Indian or Native American baby. But during the divorce, when he had known the truth for a few years, he fought for me along with my brothers and eventually got custody of all of us. He planned on never telling me, but eventually my mum's loudmouth, complete piece of shit sister decided to let me know during an argument to be petty. What a fucking bitch. And thank you, Riff Magos, for that $2 donation. He says, hit the like button. Yeah, do that, guys. Smash the like button and sub to Hammerhand as well, guys. Yes, well said. Really? This you can't script this shit. It just jumped out of the article. I'm just gonna jump back in. Give me a second to find my spot again, guys. So this is just crazy. Like all of these stories coming out. At what point is there some accountability? Oh, I know. Never. Doesn't happen. And by the way, guys, while I'm doing this, this is biological nature for women while they're ovulating, even if they're in a committed relationship, even if they're married, even if they love their partner, to go and seek out the most suitable mate. And by mate, I mean someone with more masculine biological characteristics. This is why people are getting all these little soy boys and the nice guys. So the nice guys get cheated on all the time because they don't work on themselves with their fitness. They don't build their confidence. Like, do personal development, guys. Go to the gym. Get fit. Get healthy. Do all of these things that make you the alpha male, because that's the only way that you're going to keep any chance of loyalty when you get into a relationship, if you get into a relationship and don't get married. Okay. I think we're almost back to where we were at before. Here we go. Here's where we're at. So yeah, he planned on never telling me, but eventually my mum's loudmouth, complete piece of shit sister decided to let me know during an argument to be petty. That was probably the first time I really saw my dad cry. He's had periods of not being the best dad, but overall I ended up getting all of my most defining traits from him. His commitment to a decision, his maniac work ethic, which was how he showed love, and his strength to keep moving forward despite constantly getting fucked. It does say that in the article. Constantly getting fucked by every woman he trusts. I think he's done looking for love. It makes me sad because he really deserves it. Maybe if my mum had been a better person, he would have had a chance at that. He did get remarried, but the only thing worse than a shitty mum is an evil, narcissistic stepmother. Ain't that the damn truth? Think you've heard it all? Nope. The next guy got hit with a double whammy after he found out he wasn't a dad after all, or a grandpa. As we roll on to the next story, happened to my fiance's mum, who is a labor and delivery nurse. One time she had a patient whose parents were present during her stay at the hospital. The staff there have a whiteboard with some general information about the patients, like blood type, time spent in the wing, and like how far along. This information is nameless for HIPAA reasons and instead has a patient's number. So this patient happened to be the only one in the wing at the time. Her father was walking back from the cafeteria at one point and noticed the board. He stopped one of the nurses and asked if the blood type for the patient on the board was correct, because he knew his daughter was the only patient there. It was B+. The nurse confirmed it was correct. Turns out he knew his and his wife's blood type. He was O+, and his wife was A+. Sorry, A-. This combination will never yield a B+ baby. Let that sink in. He brings his wife out and just points at the board, and a look of shock just washes over her. Yeah, shock that she got caught out and got held accountable. I was doing epidurals in the next story in residency. This Caucasian couple was a more rural part of the country. And when I say Caucasian couple, you know where this is headed. Tyrone! Back off, man! Let the dudes in with a chance. and they don't look or sound particularly educated. Anyhow, the wife is particularly antsy, asking when she can go home even though the baby isn't out yet. The husband looks bored and uninterested, like he's been there a whole bunch of times. I don't usually stay in the rooms during delivery, but this one I just happened to be nearby to give more in the epidural because of a tear immediately after delivery. Anyhow, when I get to the room, the wife is holding her eyes shut and doesn't want to see her baby. You know why she doesn't want to see it? Because I look at the baby and he's obviously black. Now the husband's paying attention and he sees what I do. He keeps repeating, "When that baby gonna pink up?" Louder and louder. The OB tries to diffuse things by reminding everyone that this moment is critical and suggests the baby should be taken to the resuscitation area in the NICU and that the father should step out while the OB repaired the laceration. We called the social worker and security and I was called elsewhere, so I don't know what happened afterwards, so I can't imagine it was good. And I just wanted to say thank you to my brother Hammerhand for that very, very generous $50 donation. Brother, I appreciate you. And to those of you guys who are not yet following Hammerhand, please go and check him out. He has an amazing channel. He does videos from the cockpit of his vehicle, my Golf R, and his truck. And I got a lot of respect for you, man. So thank you, Hammerhand. And on that note, I'm going to dedicate this next story to Hammerhand. Not in the medical field, just married into an odd family. About 15 years ago, my SO baby brother got really sick. I don't know what they mean by SO, but I'm sure someone will let me know in the comments. Was in and out of hospitals and seeing a bunch of doctors. He admitted yet again, father-in-law calls and asks all the siblings to come just in case. We are the last to arrive. We get there and everyone is silent, obviously been crying. We both think, oh shit, he died. SO starts to tear up and his dad comes striding towards us, tears still tuning down his face, and says, "Let's step outside." He says, "Baby brother is fine, but there is something I have to tell you." Turns out father-in-law isn't really baby brother's dad, nor is he really the biological dad to 3 other of SO's siblings. The hospital wanted to run some tests on the father-in-law and stepmother-in-law to rule out something. I don't remember what, and they had to come clean. The siblings were 25, 26, 27, and 28, so it kind of fucked them up for a bit. That's a sad story, man. That's not cool. So, you know, to I guess move on from that sad story, I'm going to give you the next one. I worked as a lab tech. Oh, I love the lab tech ones. They got the inside scoop. Before I became a nurse, we had a set of twins in the NICU that were still super early, and the mum was still in the OR getting sewed up from the cesarean. I was drawing baby B's blood when mum was wheeled over to baby A's isolette. She was crying and said, "Oh, thank God you're not black. I've been so worried for the last 7 months." Tyrone, man. Come on. Come on. Give someone a chance, brother. and Tyrone Brown, I'm talking about you, man. I'm talking about you, my brother. I've been so worried for the last 7 months. So newborn babies, especially when they're born early, are very pink, almost red. So even if a baby was part black, their skin isn't necessarily dark yet. But looking at these babies, it was obvious they were going to be black. The shape of the face, the texture of the hair, and baby B that I was working on had an intense Mongolian spot. A few weeks later, my NICU nurse friend told me that the babies were now on a no info status, meaning security alert. Can't give anyone information about them, can't refer to them by name, etc. She said there was a huge fight because the mum's husband, white guy, obviously noticed that the babies were half black and got pregnant. The real dad, black guy, came in and didn't even realize the mum was married. Those poor babies. 100%. It says here, after reading these, you may want to pay a little visit to 23andme.com, so feel free to do that. But I'm going to grace you with the next story now. I'm not finished. I mean, you shouldn't be worried, but maybe just a little curious. These stories are so rare, after all, but they do happen. Oh, hang on. I think this is the outro. I think this is the closer on this one. These stories are so rare after all, but they do happen. Not as rarely as you might think. And it's not always as blatantly apparent as it was in these cases. You may want to go with the DNA kit stocking stuffers for Christmas this year. Just a suggestion. Don't forget to share this with your family members. They may have something they've been meaning to tell you. Stir the fucking pot just a bit. Hey, that's what you do. Anyway, guys, I hope you like this video. I've been cranking out for 45 minutes now. This has been a ripper stream. We got 211 in the box. Thank you to all of you gentlemen. Please smash that thumbs up, and a massive thank you to all of you that donated. And again, please go follow my brother Hammerhand if you haven't already. He's a good guy, and I appreciate you, Hammerhand. Anyway, I'm out of here for now, guys. Please make sure you share this video with someone. Even if they only want to watch 5 minutes, they're going to get just as much entertainment value as if they watch 45. Especially if you got a mate and you don't think his kid's his. You know what I'm saying? If you want to donate, paypal.me/SydneyMGTOW, patreon.com/SydneyMGTOW. And please make sure you smash that thumbs up, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you are subscribing for the first time, or if you've subscribed for a while but haven't yet done that. I'm looking forward to catching you guys next time.